No, hey, I'll tell you, one of the things I've seen in teaching is I would teach kids, seventh graders in life science, and then I would go and then I'd hang out in the biology class a couple of years later, and I would see those same kids, and I'm going, and Mr. Allen would be talking to something about these kids going, I don't know what that is. Going, dude, we covered this before. I remember I taught you that, but the problem is we tend to forget things, so we could probably actually hear about the same sermon about 20 times in a row before we finally got it. I like watching movies over and over again to catch all the nuances of the movie. So this is here in Ephesians, and when you read the book of Ephesians, you got to remember it's a book written to some Christians there in Ephesus. Okay, and when you start considering what he's talking about, his main theme in this book is this idea of unity. Okay, which as we look around our country today, idea of unity is something we really need as we are working on, just squabbling on. But here it's this idea of the unity in Christ. And so we think about the church. We don't want to think about us here. We don't want to think about like the Methodist church over there, or like our little church, Forest Lake, or Rocky Bay Baptist. We want to think of the church. When he was talking to us, he's talking about the church, and what's it like. Now, a lot of things he's saying here are specifically to guys that were not Jews. Okay, these were Gentile Christians, and he has spent a lot of time telling them just what God has done for them. And if you look in chapter 2, he starts off and he spends the first 10 verses talking about what he has done for them as individuals. It's like, hey, you, Joe Ephesian, hey, you, Jane Ephesian, this is what God did for you. Then he gets this section, the second half, where he talks about this is what God's done for us as a group. Okay, so I want to read this 4 verses here, into the chapter 2 of Ephesians, verses 19 to 22. So then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and are of God's household, having been built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom the whole building being fit together is growing to a holy temple of the Lord, in whom you also are being built together into a dwelling of God in the Spirit. So I'm going to start off here saying, okay, he says, you are no longer, which means you used to be, right? And he says, you guys, he's specifically talking Gentiles, and hey, how many people in this room are Gentiles? Oh wait, that'd be all of us, right? And he starts that, says, you are no longer strangers and aliens. You say, well, what's a stranger and alien? Well, the word you see there, the first one, stranger, that's kind of like a tourist. Okay, tourist. You guys, we've all been a tourist before. You go through someplace. You're not in there a long time. You go, you hang around there, and you're there for a while, and then you move on. Okay, so it says, well, we're not that. It says, and we're no longer aliens. And the idea of an alien was someone that they hang around there a lot longer. They're in that place, but they're not that citizen. So like in our church, we've got a family, we've got a Korean family. And it's been fun watching them one at a time become American citizens. Well, the last one, Peter, is waiting to become an American citizen. And he's jumped through lots of hoops, and he's done all his things. Now he's just waiting for that last meeting where they say, okay, you appear before a judge, and you will be an American citizen. But right now, he is the alien. He's the guy who's here, he's living a while here, and he's hanging around us, but he's not a citizen. So he didn't get all the benefits that we do, okay, because he's still an alien. As his other family members have become the citizens. So this first little section here, he's talking about the idea of are we becoming fellow citizens or citizens of God's kingdom? He says, so we used to be outside, but we're not anymore. And this is an exciting thought, that when I look at Peter, I see Peter doing lots of work to become a citizen. But what it really comes down to is the government's got to open that door and say, okay, Peter, come on, Peter's son, today you get to come up here and you get to do your swearing in. And so Peter's done a lot of stuff, but until the government says, come on, Peter's son is still going to be that alien. But here you see, with God, he's done this for us. God has brought us, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, God has made you a citizen of his kingdom. And if we think about this idea of being citizens, it's a big deal. There are all kinds of benefits we get here in America because we're citizens. I remember years ago, well, my mom telling the story, and I was pretty sure it was my mom that told the story about my brother being born in England. Okay, he was born in England to American parents, but he was born in England, so that makes him, which if you're born in England, one of the things they give you is this little card. And that card says, hey, you need medical care? You got it. Okay, because he was born into there. Now, we're not born like that. We have to be brought in, okay? But all the benefits we get because we're America's citizens, okay, all the rights that come to us. And so he's saying, you guys used to be on the outside, but now you're citizens of God's kingdom. Because they used to be just these guys hanging around. Now all the benefits of being a citizen, they get. In that same verse, he also says that not only are you no longer strangers and aliens, but you're of the household of God. So you think, wait a minute, what's a household? Household is, being part of that whole family. Now, what we have to do is make sure we're thinking, okay, what does God mean as being a family? Because a lot of times we look at our own families and I think, well, have you ever done anything dumb in your family? Have you ever made mistakes with your children? Have your children ever gotten upset with you? And we see mistakes. We have to say, okay, but let's look at part of God's household, which is, it's not the family where people have made the mistakes. It's not the deadbeat dad or the loser mom. It's not this. No, this is the perfect example of a family, the way it should be, the way that families should care and take care of one another. If you look at this word household, you start seeing it's used a couple of the times in the New Testament, like in Galatians 6:10, this same word, this household. It says, as we have opportunity, let's do good to all men, especially to those who are of the household of faith. Okay, the believers, it says, hey, we need to really make sure we take care of these group, okay? And the same word is used in 1 Timothy 5:8, but if anyone provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he denies the faith and is worse than an infidel. So when I think of this, I go back to, there was this movie a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, it's called Lilo and Stitch. Okay? You've probably seen this with your grandchildren. And Lilo and Stitch, they make this quote, this little girl, she stands, says, a family is Ohana, and a family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. And it's this idea that the family sticks together and helps one another. That's this idea that we are here together as a group to help one another, even if we don't necessarily know one another, okay? Because we are part of that family of God. It's a really cool concept. Now, what's fun there is he uses this word in the middle of the saints. We're fellow citizens with the saints, okay? We're the same kingdom as the saints, and we're God's household. And saints is one of those neat words because it's the word that, you say, what do you call people in the Old Testament that were believers? What do we call people in the New Testament that were believers? One word that sticks out is the word saint. Okay, and we think of saints, they're people that are set apart, people that are holy. Guys, I don't know if you thought of yourself as that, but God is looking at you and saying, hey, Nelda, I want you to be set apart, to be holy. Now, anybody understands Nelda's sins? It's her. She's going, how about you? There's a lot of times going, I don't feel real holy here, okay? I really, really don't. But God is calling us to that. Okay, so he says, we are fellow citizens in God's kingdom. We are part of the household of God. And then the next 3 verses, he talks about this idea of we are part of a building. Okay? Now we look around this, we say, yeah, I see I'm part of the building. That building's got walls and this. But this building is a much different building. Okay, it starts off, it says, it's built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself be the chief cornerstone. Okay, we've all seen buildings get built before. The building I teach in right now at school, it took us like 3 years to make this building. So each day I would go past my building watching them slowly make this building when they first, because it's on a hill, so they first dug into the hill, and then they made it all flat, okay, and then, they put a bunch of rods all around here, okay, and then they started mapping out things, where's the water going to come in, and things like that. Then they first they put that foundation that went around it, okay. They made sure the building was set straight, and then they poured the cement on to finish the foundation, and then they built the walls up, and it's a 2-story building. So they had the 10-inch blocks, and then they poured a cement floor for the 2nd story, and then they built the 8-inch blocks on top of that. You got to watch them build that building, but it started off with the thing of making sure you had a good foundation, because if you've got a lousy foundation, buildings collapse. So they started off with, and here we talk this idea of a cornerstone. We don't see this idea nearly as prominently as we used to, where you would see, you would have that one corner, maybe even that cornerstone, they might even put things like maybe time capsules and stuff like that, okay? But it was that one first place you put down that if you make this right, rest of the building starts off. Because generally speaking, we want buildings to be rectangles and stuff like this, right? And we want to line everything up. If you think now, when you see them build buildings, if everything's not lined up right, your plumbing is going to come up here, and you can build your bathroom up here and go, oh wait, but my pipes are over here. So you got to get that foundation right. And so it starts with Jesus Christ. But then it's fun. You see, it says, but also this part of this foundation is the apostles and the prophets. Okay? Did the apostles give us anything?
New Testament.
Yeah, we started with, man, we've got this Bible here that the apostles who studied under Jesus Christ, who listened to him, the apostles like Paul, who God revealed things to us, they've given us this New Testament. Okay, this word, whether it's here on a device like this, or whether it's in a nice book like Pat's got there. So we have this building, okay, because the saints and the household are on a building that starts out this foundation being Jesus Christ and the prophets. Now, as you begin to think of this, notice this. So you have the Jesus Christ, the apostles, in whom the whole building being fitted together is growing into a holy temple of the Lord, in whom you are being dwelt. Now, think about this idea. We've got to find the right verse on this one here. In 1 Peter 2:5, it says, you also, as living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house for a holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God. It says, you are a living stone. So when we're talking about this idea, there's this building that's being built. It's all being fit together. Hey guys, it's us. We are the stones. Now, you can look over here. You can actually see in here the individual stones. You can see a stone here. You can see a stone here. You can see, and you can see how they're offset. You can see the stones that are up here. But you and I are every bit as real as every one of these stones in here. But instead of this building that protects us from rain and things like this, it gives us a home, we're being part here of a holy temple to the Lord. You are part of the holy temple to the Lord. And you are. And you are. And you are. You know, we're the living stones that are being placed down. And you start going, but remember now, when did Paul write this? Ballpark figure 2,000 years ago. Okay, so guys, dude, we're the people up here. Okay, for 2,000 years, living stones have been laid. 2,000 years, living stones have been laid. And who knows how long it's going to be before Christ comes back. So there may be a lot of living stones placed on top of us. Okay, that we may be part of these guys. I remember when I was first looking at this, I was looking at things where there are some cathedrals in Europe where it took them centuries to build. Centuries. So they start this building out here, but they keep building and adding onto it. But it all starts with that cornerstone. And then they're making that foundation and making the rest of the building straight. And the more building is built upon that. So even though it may take hundreds of years to build this cathedral, it all started with that cornerstone, with that foundation. So the people then that come afterwards have that responsibility to build on that. And that's us. We've got that responsibility to build. Because in verse 22, in whom you also are being built together into a dwelling of God in the Spirit. In the Old Testament, you had the temple. In the temple they would go and they would make sacrifices. Is there a temple anymore? Not a physical one, but there's a temple. Okay, guys. There's a temple out there. There's that temple. There's a temple out there, and we are the stones in that temple that God is building.
Amen.
It's great. You are being built together. And this is great because it's not just us, not even just the Baptist Church and the Methodist Church and Forest Lake Bible Church and the people that meet here. Man, it's just not us. It's the believers everywhere on the planet. Right now, we're these higher levels that have been built by the saints through all this time. Be a dwelling of God in the Spirit. God chose to let us do that so He would dwell in us. Now, I have this week we had some friends that they had a death in their family, and I'm listening to that. I just can't imagine the sorrow as one of their children died. I can't imagine the sorrow of having one of your children die. But I know, I listen to this and I think, these people, like you, like me, like the other believers, we are a dwelling of God in the Spirit. So I pray for them. God, you are dwelling in them. let them feel your presence. Because the Spirit of God, it used to be they would come together and they would make sacrifices all throughout the year, and then on the Day of Atonement they would come in there and some guy would go, and the priest would go in the Holy of Holies, and they would make that, they would have the scapegoat and the other goat, and they would have all that. Okay, but there's no more of that. Okay, because we don't need any more sacrifices. We don't need that place where God would show himself, because God shows himself now in us. And we need to be continually minded that we would make our lives that reflect this, because we don't want to make crummy temples that don't honor God. We want to be that place that honors God, because God of the universe chose to dwell in you and let you participate in this. Let us be living stones. We never need to take that lightly, because God has done us a great honor that the God of the universe would choose to do that. We go back to simple verses like John 3:16. For God so loved the world that God would do this for us. May we live remembering that we are those living stones in that temple to honor God. Thanks, guys, for being so attentive. I appreciate that.